Hi guys, so we are back with another K-pop astrology episode. So there's a new group in town, AHOF. Well, they debuted back in July, but I'm new to them. The fangirls are new to them. We've been wanting to dig more into them. It's just obviously there's a growing list of suggestions, and so we're trying to get those done as quickly as possible as we can. Now, I wanted to go ahead and do the AHOF astrology just because we did have a pixel recommend to do a breakdown of the astrology for this group. And honestly, just looking at it, I was really, really impressed. And so I'm gonna just walk you through this chart. Now, they did debut on July 1st of 2025 at 6 p.m. Um, and from just first view, when I first opened up the when I first what is it projected the chart, right? I could tell that this group really didn't form like just for the sake of it, like I feel that there's so much potential behind this chart. And it made me a little bit more excited about the group now, just with the chart itself, because that's kind of how I see things through an astrological lens. And just when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep my eye on this group for sure. Now, I'm gonna break down the astrology of their debut chart. Like I said, they debuted July 1st, 2025 at 6 p.m. in Korea. And I promise, even if you don't know anything about astrology, I will walk you through what this all means for the group. All right. Let me pull up. Mm, All right. This over here. Okay. So at first glance, we see Sag rising. Obviously, it was during a Cancer season, so we have the Sun and Jupiter there. And so these are the first things that I'm going to look at is Sagittarius, the first house, because it gives me a bigger um, picture what this group is about. And then, of course, I'm going to look to the planet of Jupiter because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, at least through the Hellenistic lens, which is the astrology that I practice. And I'm going to look at that planet and the relationship it has to the other planets, especially any planets that are like super close to each other. So, what does Sagittarius rising tell me? First, Sagittarius is a sign of like exploration, ambition, and just really thinking big. So, groups with this type of rising sign, they're not just trying to survive, they're trying to make an impact, make history somehow. And of course, like I said, with Jupiter ruling the sign of Sagittarius and it being in the eighth house right here, um, that just adds a deeper element to it because the eighth house is a house of like taboos, traumas, other people's money and stuff like that. But it brings like an emotional intensity to their drive and how they see the world, and also the way in that they are wanting to almost like leave a legacy, but it's not going to be an easy route, is what I'm trying to say. But they're not here to just like make music to make music. They really want to make sure that something is being felt behind the music that they put out, but also making an impact. And if you see, Jupiter is right next to the sun as well. And so that's very important. It's not an exact like what we would call a cazimi, but it's damn near close. And so one, it being in the sign of Cancer, it kind of brings a like emotional, nurturing, almost reflective vibe to it because Cancer, the sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon reflects the light of the sun. So the sun shows us where their identity shines the most. And for this group, it's in the eighth house of transformations. So what does that mean when you apply Sun and Jupiter together? It means that they have such a big purpose, but it's gonna unfold over time because it's in a house that is almost hidden and they just debuted. It's gonna be a work in progress for sure. And because it's in the eighth house, it's going to have a lot of transformation arcs within the time that the group has. And it's almost going to be like, think of it like a phoenix, sorry, rising from the ashes. There's going to be almost like a rebirth or emotional healing, depth, and some sort of like deep transformation within the group. It's not anytime you have like eighth house placements, there's nothing surface level about you. You're going to be a very deep, impactful group. But because it's in the eighth house and in a hidden house, and sometimes it can't be seen, it means that there's going to be a work in progress type of storyline for you. But it is a group that is gonna grow with time. And that's an important thing that I will come back to. Now, the other thing I wanted to also highlight is their moon and Mars in the 10th house. So the 10th house is like our career house, our legacy, and it's where how you show up visibly, right? It's the most visible house in our chart. So it is in the sign of Virgo. So the work ethic here is real, especially with the sign of Virgo. But so the moon tells us what they need emotionally to be like fulfilled, right? And it's sitting in the 10th house of career and visibility and in Virgo. Now, Virgo doesn't play when it comes to precision, consistency, and like crafting. And then if you add Mars to it here, Mars is obviously the sign of like go, 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 let's keep going, no stop. And if you add that Mars energy here, you literally have like what we consider like a workhorse energy. So this is a group that won't be satisfied once they do get that recognition. They are going to want to feel like they've earned that respect through how hard they put themselves through to master, like whether it's dancing, this concept, if you have like uh, members who can improve their skills with rap or with vocals or with dancing, they're going to feel satisfied once it's that is recognized, not popularity, the skill, right? And it's almost like a perfectionist energy, but it's the way that they as a group are going to feel like, oh my God, this is what we've been wanting to feel and see progress within the group. And I mean, like I said, that is going to be they're going to feel that way as they grow in like dancing, choreography, vocals, a concept that they really want to hone in on. The not perfectionist, but the really taking in on all the details because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Virgo, the archetype of Virgo is very detailed when it comes to the data, right? The information that we need. And then adding the element of Mars, it's like I'm gonna tweak it until I feel satisfied that that what I had imagined in my head can come to life, pretty much. So it is a group that works hard. I can already tell just by looking at the chart. I literally have only reacted to one of their music videos. Again, just because we want to be able to like react. Koa left us. He's already going down that rabbit hole, but I still want to be able to take the time to um react to their stuff, get to know them a little bit better. So please let me know in the comments what that should be, because I know if Koa hasn't seen it, Kawai hasn't seen it, I haven't seen it. So just let us know, and maybe I can kind of stop Koa from going into AHOF deep dive without us. Um, okay, moving on. So we're gonna talk about Mercury and the ninth house. Now, I really kind of like seeing this placement in the ninth house for him because Mercury, for him, for them, because Mercury is the sign of communication and it's in Leo, which is very expressive, confident. And in the ninth house is the sign, I'm sorry, the house of like exploration, learning, global influence, foreign lands, foreign people. So this could really mean that AHOF is really meant to speak to international fans. And maybe when it comes to like their messaging or even the lyrics, it will feel personal, but also inspiring on a bigger scale because it's in that ninth house of like expansion. So they also, with having that placement, I can really tell that they're not afraid to say what they stand for, or that we will see that in as we get to know them more as a group. And as they grow and have that luxury of being able to say what they stand for and stuff like that, because I know they just debuted it. But that house is, like I said, a foreign land, foreign people, and global influence, and being able to Mercury, I like to call it the megaphone, to be able to project that to other countries. I feels like I feel like it's what's going to help them expand beyond the borders and expand beyond the place that they're at, right? Because, not all groups are like popular outside of Korea. And so I feel like with AHOF, it might not be the case right now. I don't know how big this group is thus far, but I am confident that they are going to really be big in the sense of like global market, not just Korea. Now, what I also wanted to talk about is this conjunction here. It's not a like exact conjunction, but it is Uranus and Venus together. And to me, this is almost like aesthetic mastery, just because it's in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is ruled by Venus, right? So it's comfortable there and it likes soft visuals, sensory appeal, some form of consistency just because it's also an earth sign. But then if you add the element of Uranus, Uranus adds unpredictability. It's the planet that just like shocks you, right? So it brings an element of unpredictability to their aesthetics, right? And these two are in the sixth house of like work, your daily life, your 9 to 5 routine. And it has a direct link to the 12th house, which is also the house of like behind the scenes. So I sometimes like to kind of bring in the house that opposites the house that I'm talking about because it also adds a little layer to those placements that are in a specific house. So there is like a sense of a structure and beauty about it, but also a lot of unpredictability. So they might be able to like come off and present themselves as like a very polished group, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are the type of group that are going to constantly switch things, switch the script for the fandom, right? So think about unexpected visuals, styling shifts, like they'll have those moments where fans go, "Wait, who approved this or who said yes to this?" But not like in a bad way, like in a way that they would literally shock you with the concept and the visuals and not being afraid to deliver, you know? But like I said, it's also in the sense of like behind the scenes. So maybe even being involved in the process of saying, "Hey, why don't we try this out?" Or "Hey, why don't we do this type of concept?" And I think already, let me see. I don't remember which song it was, but I know the video had me gagged. Which is the one that, bear with me, because I've been like learning about so many groups. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Okay, so it's Rendezvous. Okay, Rendezvous. I think it's what the name is. So that was the first video that I've seen of them. I reacted to them, and when I tell you I was gagged with the visuals, like it was something that I was not expecting at all for to be coming from a group that just debuted, pretty much. So visuals, I mean, you can tell that they are going to constantly try new things while making sure that their message is being delivered. Um, Now moving on, I want to talk about, oh, the fifth house here of creativity and stuff like that, because we have Saturn, Neptune, and also Chiron, which Chiron is like is an asteroid, but we use it in like astrology because it is the wounded healer, so it can kind of tell us about where they might have struggles with, but that they are supposed to have these struggles to learn something, right? So in the fifth house, like I said, it rules creativity, performance, and like fun, because that's the house of hobbies as well. Now, AHOF has Saturn there, and I don't know if you've seen my other astrology videos, but when I talk about Saturn, think of it like your strict teacher, strict father, strict, you know, father figure or whatnot. And then you add Neptune, and Neptune is like that veil, almost like the dreamer archetype. And then Chiron is the wounded healer. It's our wounds and how we are to heal those. And this combination in the house of creativity, their journey might start off a little bit challenging. Maybe some of their what they debuted with or how they debuted might have been misunderstood or just overly like too structured. And this is something, these challenges is what's going to make them grow as a group, because they're meant to heal from those experiences from when they debuted, or whatever experiences that they have as a group that is like a challenge that they have to learn from it, really. Learning from their mistakes or their challenges is what's really going to catapult them into the next phase and eventually help hone in into what they need to learn skill wise, which we talked about with the energy in the Virgo house, with the moon and Mars, right? But Neptune does bring that dreamy, ethereal, creative concept. So Saturn is adds the element of like, this can be, we can make this vision happen. You just have to work for it. So when it comes to Saturn, working for it is really, really, really important to to that planet. Um, Now I do want to also bring up Pluto in the third house. Now with Pluto there, it's in the third house of communication, and there's a sense of like almost redefining communication, and even like you could say power, because Pluto is that archetype of like someone with authority, with power. But in the sign of Aquarius and in the third house, this is more about changing how they connect with each other and with us as their audience, right? So they could experiment with different elements of technology just because it's in the sign of Aquarius. That kind of gives me a little bit of an insight as to what things they might use to communicate, right? To kind of transform that form of communication. So it could be, like I said, doing like different techie stuff. If they don't, I would be a little bit upset just because that placement in the third house has a lot of potential to be able to differentiate themselves from other groups by experimenting with different ways on how to communicate with the fandom. But whether that's now or later, just know that I feel like that is something that would definitely make them stand out and would be important for the fandom, the people that they want to connect to, um, be able to transcend almost like that relationship between idol and fan, right? So it would kind of give them an element of, I wouldn't say surprise, but it would be more of an element to, like I said, catapult them into the next stage, but really stand out from maybe, like I said, other fandoms. So I'm trying to think like what else could they do? Because I know when it comes to how groups debut and stuff like that, they're pretty much like the same. You get fan calls and stuff like that. But if there's a way that they could kind of tweak that to their advantage, it will make waves. It would make waves. So keep that in mind. Hopefully, they do something that will help them kind of stand out and stick out from the rest of the groups. Because I feel like they have like so much potential to break out of the just Korean market that if they hone in that quirky personality that this group has as a whole, then they will definitely break out of the mold for sure. Now, for the soul imprint, right? They have South Node over here in the 10th house and North Node in the 4th house in Pisces. So this pretty much tells me like where the group is heading. And we look at the North Node and it's in Pisces and in the 4th house. 4th house. Because it's in the sign of Pisces and in the 4th house, it kind of brings a sense of like bringing almost like emotional healing to their house. Let me explain. So when I say to their house, it's to like the most internal parts that we don't see. So when you say, "Oh, you are my home," you know, it's that's kind of what I'm referring to. Kind of almost like creating an emotional safety within them, creating like a space of comfort and also imagination because Pisces can be very dreamy, but honestly, emotional honesty within the group. So with that dynamic, it can show off as a group who can be an emotional safe place for fans. So not just a group that you can admire, right? But one that feels like home to their fans. And obviously, like I said, they just debuted not too long ago, so it's something that might end up growing within the fandom. So just know that their sole imprint or their sole contract as a group is to be able to kind of show that emotional side of the group and be that emotional safe space for their fandom. Now, I did want to bring up the MC line, the midheaven line, which is in Libra. Yes, the 10th house usually tends to have the MC line in there as well, but not all the time, just depends on what time you were born and stuff like that. So technically the MC is the highest peak. This is the highest house, right? The most visible house. But when you're talking about the MC line, this is like the highest peak because we are rotating in an axis. So for it being in Libra, I still wanted to talk about the Libra house because it has an MC line. And with it being in the 11th house, it if you know, you know, when I talk about the 11th house, I also like to talk about how the 11th house can almost represent the fandom as a unit. Now, their MC just in Libra, right, describes also their public image. And because it falls in the 11th house of communities, fan bases, and the collective, this means that their aesthetics will have that appeal and will have the ability to connect with the fans. Let me explain. Because Libra is ruled also by Venus, aesthetics is one of the layers that Venus brings to the sign of Libra. And because it's in the 11th house of fandoms and stuff like that, it kind of adds almost like this layer of appealing aesthetics that will pull you in first. So think of like them honing in, and this goes back to having that Venus Taurus energy because the MC, right, is ruled by that Venus in Taurus conjunct Uranus. It combines those two energies, and it's almost an ability to like be almost futuristic or outside the box. And those are the things that are going to, and now talking about it out loud is kind of what made me want to look into them more, because just aesthetics wise, I was so intrigued by what they were trying to say storytelling wise visually, that I was like, oh my God, like you don't see this with every group, right? And I really wanted to be like, oh my God, just visuals alone, right? Because I don't know Korean. So I have to go and look at the English lyrics or try and catch to see um what they say. And but just visually they captured my attention. And I feel like that is also the same for other people within the fandom. It's because they bring that layer of aesthetics of almost like equality, or even like ways where aesthetically they can connect people, because Libra is a sign that likes to balance as well, and it's a way that they can connect with people. It's through the visual arts pretty much. So because they're also a Sagittarius rising group, I would like to think that those visuals that they put out, that they experiment with, is in a way a way to be able to represent something meaningful. Like it's not aesthetics for aesthetics. I don't want you to think that they're just doing aesthetics for aesthetics. I feel like because they're in a Sag rising chart, it always comes back to making sure that it's something meaningful, something that will last, something that will really have an impact on a global sense. And some of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about as well, one of the markers that does tell me that they know how to take action with passion, which is a great mix for drive and purpose, is when the sun is sextiling that Mars. And it's sextiling that Mars that is in the 10th house, which again, like I said, it's the highest house, the most visible house in a chart. And so that is something that we are definitely going to see um, them do as a group. Now, the other thing that I wanted to hint at, because I feel like people are definitely going to be drawn to them on the emotional sense and feel like a connection with their songs, sorry, is that moon trining that Uranus and Venus. So there's a sense of like drawing unexpected audience, but through the emotional lens. And what else? Was it Mercury? Yeah, so in a way, because Mercury is having a trine with Saturn and Neptune, it's almost like they have this, even though because from last time I checked, right, I think they were like pretty young. So, with Mercury trine Saturn and Neptune, it almost brings like this sense of maturity to their concepts. They feel matured and almost inspiring for how young this group of boys are. So there is a sense of like maturity there that also can pull a much like older audience as well. Now, like I said, with Venus and Uranus right here in the sixth house, it kind of gives you that unexpected visuals. But it's gonna be unexpected visuals that work. I don't want you guys to think like, oh my God, they're going to do a hard left or a hard right and it not land. No, it's gonna work for them because they're gonna make it them. And now what I did want to point out, which also it just screams to the transformation that this group is going to constantly go through, is Pluto is trining their MC line, is opposing this Mercury. It has a trine to this the conjunction in the sixth house for Taurus and Venus. Sorry, is squaring Chiron, which is like tension, same with oppositions. But then it's also sextiling this conjunction in Neptune and Saturn. And what that tells me is that transformation is at the core of this group. They are constantly going to go through this transformation arc every comeback. Um, but it is there for them to constantly grow as a group together. Now, as far as like any challenges that I really see is that square between what was it? Sun, Neptune. Oh wait. Okay. Is it? So it's a loose square, but right here, even though Saturn and Neptune are at 1, 2 degrees, and the sun is at 9 degrees, it's not like an exact square, but it's still, in my eyes, it's still kind of like in the Hellenistic sense because of the houses where they're at. It still kind of makes a square. And what that tells me is that they may struggle with pressure versus creativity really early on and some identity issues in regards to how they show up as a group. But again, like I said, it's meant to happen just because they are meant to kind of hone in into the group concept that they should land on, right? It's still a work in progress. And I feel like, you know, with each comeback, they're going to like hone in on what really speaks to AHOF. Now, also the moon with the south node there, it's almost like they might feel like they have to let go of almost that vulnerability. And I hope that they don't. That's the only thing that would really concern me is like really letting go of that emotional connection that they may have with. Because sometimes when we talk about the South Node, we tend to feel pulled to let those things go. But with when you look at the nodes, it's all about a balancing act, is knowing what things to let go of and what things to strive for, which would be the North Node. But it's not completely letting go of what your South Node entails. It's finding a balance of what works for you and what doesn't, and being able to balance it with that North Node energy. So I just feel like hopefully they don't kind of suppress that vulnerability that they have probably projected debuting. Um and then let's see. So 7 degrees. So I would still consider this Mars squaring that I know it's not exact and it's like 7 degrees further in the sign of Sagittarius than Mars, but that Mars square Saturn, I mean, that Mars square Sagittarius also might give an impression that they might go really like hard on behind the scene work, but just trust that I don't know if there's behind the scenes footage of them working through stuff. But if there is, there might be almost like this sense of like, oh my God, they're like so, detailed or so like want things to be perfect and stuff like that. But just understand that that almost level of perfectionism is there because they are wanting to make sure that it comes out the way that they're processing it, that the way they're envisioning it. And, I'm just saying that maybe behind the scenes to other people, it might come as a misinterpretation or misunderstanding. Um, but honestly, when I first saw this chart, I was like, oh my God, I really, really like that Jupiter Sun there. Obviously, in the eighth house, it's just going to just be a journey of transformation. But I do really like that Mercury. I know it's opposing Pluto, but again, it's almost like that phoenix that rises from the ashes and the potential to really speak to a global audience. And because they have those Mars placements, it's all about being very precise as to how they want to execute things. And so I believe that these are very hardworking kids that are making sure that they can show the best version of themselves in their craft, right? Whether that's dancing, vocal, rapping, visuals, concept, it's they are wanting to make sure that it comes out at the what they would consider their 100%, So it's not like an instant famous chart because sometimes, groups rise really quickly and fall really fast, right? So I feel like with this chart, this t tells me, speaks to me as a group that it's almost going to be like a slow burn legacy. So we're going to see them grow because they're a Sagittarius rising. They are a oh my God, what is it that I want to say? They are a big vision group, not what can we do, you know, in 6 months, right? It's how can we look in 5 years from now? So they most likely will go through reinvention, growth, and almost emotionally as well as a group that we might not know about. But it's not a group I feel like that is going to try and chase reality, right? Which we see a lot of these days. Like you have to make sure that the song has a catchy chorus so that it can be a TikTok trend and then can go viral. That's not the end goal. They're trying to build something. They're trying to be a group that will last very long. And if they stick to making sure that they balance that vulnerability with still being emotional and not detach the emotion out of it, honestly, they are going to fit that AHOF name that is short for Hall of Fame, right? Or Hall of Famer. So they'll earn it. They'll earn that name that they gave themselves, which I really like. So that is it for what I had for you guys today. Like I said, I mean, they are a group that just debuted, and so we still have so much to learn from them as a group. But again, if you haven't checked out our reaction to AHOF's Rendezvous, I will try and link it somewhere here, whatever. So you can check that out. It was our first time reacting to them. Koa was obsessed and he went and did his own deep dive. So he has listened to a couple of things already, but Kavai and I haven't yet. Um, I have a toddler. I have clients that I work with. So I don't have much time. Honestly, the Fangirls Reacts channel is my me time where I get to listen to new music, explore new groups. And so that's the time that I have to really be able to like dive deep into groups and stuff. So that is why I haven't really had the opportunity to listen to more of their stuff. Um, because it's just really hard. I'm kind of trying to be an octopus, I know, but it's just that's my own things that I need to to learn how to not try and stretch myself thin. But please, please, please let me know if you want myself or the fangirls to react to more of AHOF content. And like I said, because this group is brand new, we're going to keep on adding layers to it. So, down the road, we can kind of reevaluate this chart and see where everything lines up or that might not lined up. So, just keep that in mind for the future, right? But let me know what you thought about this video. And if you're new here and you don't know who AHOF is, please check them out. Please check our reaction to them. If you are a current fan of AHOF, please let me know what you thought of this video. Do you feel that energy? Um, did I miss something? But please let me know what your favorite AHOF track is, and if you have a bias or a favorite member, doesn't have to be a bias. And let me know if you want me to kind of follow the transits along with them, maybe for their next comeback. I know they have one coming up November. I don't know if this video will be out before then or after, not sure, but please let me know if you guys want me to do that. If it's before their comeback, please let me know if you want me to read the comeback. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Kpop astrology breakdown. Bye.